You've been putting on Daily Cap Radio. Don't let another moment go by. Support public radio and the fact-based independent news you hear every day. If you give before 1 p.m., you'll have two chances to win a $500 REI gift card. Go to capradio.org to check it out. From the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX, this is Reveal. I'm Al Letson. The election of 1898 was officially over, and the white supremacists in Wilmington had succeeded in suppressing the vote. They'd stuffed ballot boxes and terrorized black men to keep them from voting. White Democrats took back some seats in the North Carolina State House, and they did well in county elections, but the local government in Wilmington, which included several black aldermen, was not up for re-election. The day after the election, the white supremacists sent their ultimatum to black officials. It said, leave office and give us Alexander Manley, the black newspaper publisher, or there will be bloodshed. The officials wrote a response in which they distanced themselves from Alexander and offered to, quote, use our influence to have your wishes carried out. But that message never reached the white supremacists. On November 10th, these terrorists held a rally at the Armory, then headed for the neighborhoods, some hopping on streetcars.
Well, she used to talk to me about old times.
That's Margaret Williams Neal. She's talking about her grandmother, Della Wright.
She talked about the riot here in Wilmington. She was 12 years old, she said, when that happened.
Della was working at a white man's house. He came up to her and gave her a warning, which we need to let you know contains the N-word.
And this man came home, the man she was working for, and he told her, he said, Della, you stay here in this house. So he came in, so he had a room with a lot of guns and came to get his gun. He said, you stay here, you'll be safe, but we're going to kill some niggas.
But Della didn't listen to him. She was afraid for her nephew, so she went to sound the alarm.
So she said that when he left home, she ran out of the house to warn her sister so she could find her son. And she said she ran on home, and she got home. They were living on Front Street during that time. She said when she got home, she told her sister, and her son happened to be there at the time. And they were so glad because she said he knew he was one of them that was killed. So they put him up under the house, up in the chimney.
Della's nephew was a good-looking single guy who was popular with white women. He was right to hide.
And she said when they came looking for him, so they searched their house, but they knew where he lived, but he been in so much trouble. And she said that they ran all up underneath the house and everywhere, but he was still up in that chimney. They go up in there to look.
Della's nephew was safe, but around town, the violence was building. First, at Alexander's newspaper, the Daily Record, the red shirts went there and they didn't find Alexander, but they burned the building down, printing press and all. Then they moved on.
When they cross over Market Street and go onto the north side, these are where the first three murders take place.
Glenn Anthony Harris lives in Wilmington and teaches history at the UNC campus there.
This is where the first intimidations taking place. This is where the shots take place. This is where the fights take place.
Glenn says the terrorists even mounted a machine gun on a wagon. That gun was cutting-edge technology at the time, and they turned it on black residents.
And it is a violent period. It's a very violent time. It gets to the point where it is so deadly that blacks are fleeing for their lives. They're leaving their homes. Word is already out that this overthrow of Wilmington city government is taking place, and it's a violent. You have whites that are armed. There are already laws in Wilmington where blacks cannot arm themselves, so they're either packing up and taking what they can, leaving and going into the swamps, going into the woods to conceal themselves, to hide themselves.
Some families fled to the black cemetery to hide. The one place in town they hoped the white supremacists wouldn't look. The coup leaders tracked down prominent black men and their white allies, and at gunpoint gave them a choice. Here's journalist David Zucchino again.
Any black leaders who counseled accommodation and did not stand up to the white supremacists were allowed to say all others were banished from the town, and there was a formal banishment campaign in which 50 or 60 of the top leaders in the
black men were dead. But the one man that the coup leaders wanted to punish more than anyone else, Alexander, the newspaper publisher, was nowhere to be found. His grandson Lewin reads his grandmother's account of what happened.
In this letter she wrote to her sons, and here she's telling them how their father was involved in the coup and the effect it had upon her.
She writes that Alexander had gotten a tip from a white friend.
A white man who was a friend of your father sent for him and told him they're going to arrest him that very day, and he must get out of Wilmington.
The red shirts were patrolling the roads, steamboats, and railroads, and no one could leave town unless they knew a secret password.
His friend gave him $25 and said, "This is the password, and may God be with you, my boy. You are too fine to be swallowed to a tree."
With the $25 and that password, Alexander made his way to the edge of town. He was light-skinned and could pass for a white man. He came to a roadblock.
He used the password and escaped in the woods and over Fulton Bridge. The guards at the bridge said, "Halt." He used the password again, and they said, "We are having a necktie party in Wilmington. Where are you gentlemen going?" "We're going after that scoundrel Manley," and the guards loaded their buggies with Winchester rifles.
The guards had no idea the man they were talking to was the man they were hunting. Not only did they let him get away, they gave him weapons.
That is how your father's life was saved.
Alexander escaped with his life, but the coup had been a success. What historians say was the only successful one in American history. And the coup wouldn't just reshape the government in Wilmington, it wrote some of the first lines of Jim Crow history in America. Wilmington was about to have a big effect on the rest of the country. After the coup, Josephus Daniels, the white owner of the News and Observer, went on a mission. His paper had stirred up the mob violence with racist stories, and now he wanted to figure out how to suppress the black vote permanently. His son, Jonathan Worth Daniels, talked about his father's plan in an oral history of the 70s.
My father had been the man chosen by the Democratic Party in North Carolina to go all over the South and devise the best and hopefully the most constitutional system to disenfranchise the elected blacks while not disenfranchising the elected whites. Well, he went down to Louisiana and a number of places and came back with the legislation which was adopted.
Josephus Daniels came back with an idea. The Democrats wrote to the state constitution in 1899. It required that anyone who wanted to vote had to show they could read, but to make sure illiterate white people could still vote, the law exempted any citizen whose ancestor voted before 1868, the first year black men could vote. After Democrats took over the North Carolina state legislature, they started passing laws separating white and black people, from which train car they could ride on to the Bible they swore on in court. More laws followed for schools, houses, libraries, and parks, and soon Jim Crow laws modeled after North Carolina's swept the South. By 1914, every southern state had passed laws mandating segregation. During the civil rights era in the 60s, the country tried to undo the legacy of those Jim Crow laws, but changing the laws didn't erase the damage they'd done. As for Lewin Manley, whose grandfather ran Wilmington's black newspaper, the coup changed everything for his family. After Alexander wrote that editorial, he lost all that he had and had to start all over again. That history was so painful, Lewin's grandfather never told his family what happened.
When they had this coup d'etat in Wilmington and the Manleys left, unfortunately, my grandfather never discussed that anymore, what really happened. Because he probably went to his grave thinking that he was a perpetuator of what happened there, which he wasn't.
It wasn't until decades later that Lewin's grandmother wrote letters to her sons, explaining the violence in Wilmington, the plot to lynch their father, and his escape. Lewin didn't find out until he was an adult. So, how did you talk to your children about what happened in Wilmington?
Well, the same as I'm talking to you. It's just a matter of history. Know your history and be on the alert at all times because you never know who is your friend and who is not your friend.
For everything the Manleys lost, the property, the newspaper, Lewin feels his family was fortunate to just survive.
So I have to look at it more or less from an academic standpoint at this time is that it's just so many families have gone through situations worse than this. I mean, people lynched for no reason. You can't, if you let it get too much into your soul, then you're through. So you just do the best you can and hopefully tell the story when you get a chance like now.
Our democracy is under unprecedented assault, unlike anything we've seen in modern times.
On January 6th of last year, hours after the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, President-elect Joe Biden spoke to the nation.
Let me be very clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are.
With all due respect, that statement is wrong. This is who we are. We see throughout American history, and I get it that it's comforting to believe in a myth and not the truth, but that myth is killing us. The question is, are we willing to face our hard history and make changes, or ignore the lessons of the past and repeat them? Our story was produced by Pamela Kirkland. She had help from Reveal's Kathy Piskowski. Brett Myers and Taki Telenides edited the show with additional help from Andy Donahue. Thanks to Hannah Braysinger, Rachel Keefe, and Caitlin Freund from WHQR, as well as my friends Priska Neely and Brett Simpson for their work on the Wilmington story. Also, the Cape Fear Museum of History and Science and the Southern Oral History Program at UNC Chapel Hill for archival audio. Nikki Frake is our fact checker. Victoria Baranetsky is our general counsel. Our production manager is Amy the Great Mustafa. Original score and sound design by the dynamic duo Jay Breezy, Mr. Jim Briggs, and Fernando "My Man" Yo Aruda. Our post-production team is the Justice League, and this week it includes Catherine Steyer Martinez and Stephen Rascone. Our digital producer is Sarah Merck. Our interim CEO is Robert Rosenthal. Our interim executive producers are Taki Telenides and Brett Myers. Our theme music is by Camarado, Lightning. Support for Reveals provided by the Reva and David Logan Foundation, the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Jonathan Logan Family Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Heisman Simons Foundation, the Hellman Foundation, the Democracy Fund, and the In As Much Foundation. Reveal is a co-production of the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX. I'm Al Letson. And remember, there is always more to the story.
1-800-800-5867, 1-800-800-5867, or go to capradio.org. We do thank you.
This is live special coverage from NPR News. I'm Celeste Headley. Today in London, King Charles III will give the speech he's been preparing for his entire life, addressing his subjects after the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. And we will listen in soon to King Charles III. We do have reporter Willem Marks in London. Willem, if I can start with you. You have been near Buckingham Palace today talking to mourners. What have they been saying?
Well, a variety of things. Like flowers, a lot of people over the course.
We're now going to go to King Charles III.
Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother. For her love, affection, guidance, understanding, and example. Queen Elizabeth was a life well lived, a promise of destiny kept, and she is mourned most deeply in her passing. That promise of lifelong service I renew to all today. Alongside the personal grief that all my family are feeling, we also share with so many of you in the United Kingdom, in all the countries where the Queen was head of state, in the Commonwealth and across the world, a deep sense of gratitude for the more than 70 years in which my mother, as Queen, served the people of so many nations. In 1947, on her 21st birthday, she pledged in a broadcast from Cape Town to the Commonwealth to devote her life, whether it be short or long, to the service of her peoples. That was more than a promise. It was a profound personal commitment which defined her whole life. She made sacrifices for duty. Her dedication and devotion to the sovereign never wavered. Through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, and through times of sadness and loss. In her life of service, we saw that abiding love of tradition, together with that fearless embrace of progress, which makes us great as nations. The affection, admiration, and respect she inspired became the hallmark of her reign. And as every member of my family can testify, she combined these qualities with warmth, humor, and an unerring ability always to see the best in people. I pay tribute to my mother's memory, and I honor her life of service. I know that her death brings great sadness to so many of you, and I share that sense of loss beyond measure with you all. When the Queen came to the throne, Britain and the world were still coping with the privations and aftermath of the Second World War, and still living by the conventions of earlier times. In the course of the last 70 years, we have seen our society become one of many cultures and many faiths. The institutions of the state have changed in turn. But through all changes and challenges, our nation and the wider family of realms, of whose talents, traditions, and achievements I am so inexpressibly proud, have prospered and flourished. Our values have remained, and must remain, constant. The role and the duties of monarchy also remain, as does the sovereign's particular relationship and responsibility towards herself did with such unswerving devotion, I too now solemnly pledge myself, throughout the remaining time God grants me, to uphold the constitutional principles at the heart of our nation. And wherever you may live in the United Kingdom, or in the realms and territories across the world, and whatever may be your background or beliefs, I shall endeavor to serve you with loyalty, respect, and love, as I have throughout my life. My life will of course change as I take up my new responsibilities. It will no longer be possible for me to give so much of my time and energies to the charities and issues for which I care so deeply. But I know this important work will go on in the trusted hands of others. This is also a time of change for my family. I count on the loving help of my darling wife, Camilla. In recognition of her own loyal public service since our marriage 17 years ago, she becomes my Queen Consort. I know she will bring to the demands of her new role the steadfast devotion to duty on which I have come to rely so much. As my heir, William now assumes the Scottish titles which have meant so much to me. He succeeds me as Duke of Cornwall and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall, which I have undertaken for more than 5 decades. Today, I am proud to create him Prince of Wales, Tywysog Cymru, the country whose title I have been so greatly privileged to bear during so much of my life and duty. With Catherine beside him, our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the martial to the centre ground, where vital help can be given. I want also to express my love for Harry and Meghan as they continue to build their lives overseas. In a little over a week's time, we will come together as a nation, as a commonwealth, and indeed a global community, to lay my beloved mother to rest. In our sorrow, let us remember and draw strength from the light of her example. On behalf of all my family, I can only offer the most sincere and heartfelt thanks for your condolences and support. They mean more to me than I can ever possibly express. And to my darling Mama, as you begin your last great journey to join my dear late papa, I want simply to say this: thank you. Thank you for your love and devotion to our family and to the family of nations you have served so diligently all these years. May flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
That was King Charles III addressing the United Kingdom after the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. In those pre-recorded remarks, he paid homage to his mother, the Queen, and her service to so many nations. He noted her love of tradition, her sense of humor and warmth, and how she steered the country through a seismic change over the course of a 70-year reign. The new king also promised to carry on his mother's sense of service and duty. I'm Celeste Headley. This is live special coverage from NPR News. I am joined now by Anthony Brooks, and listening along with us today is Phil Reeves, NPR correspondent who's right now in Edinburgh, and reporter Willem Marks in London. Phil, I wonder if we can start with you. Charles has been waiting for this role for his whole life. He is now 73. Is he ready?
Very simple question. Right, he has been waiting for it and preparing for it for decades, since he was at school in Gordon in the north of Scotland. And he is not as popular as the Queen, and has at times been portrayed by members of the British public, especially after the death of Princess Diana, as rather cold-hearted and kind of emotionally unable to express his feelings and to show the kind of affection they felt that she should have had. And yet, if you look at that speech that we just heard at the very